Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story to share yourself or comments about the podcast? Please send us an email, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. This is BJ Odom. You know, the guy with more parts than a chicken nugget. My memoir packed with laughs, heart, and the unbelievable true story of survival you've heard us talk about right here on the Gift of Life podcast. Get your copy today. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, available now on Amazon. As we welcome you to episode 116. Today we'll meet Kristie Sue Hathaway, a true rare person in the transplant world. After donating a kidney to someone she never even met, the experience touched her heart so deeply that years later, she did something almost unimaginable. She became a living donor again and donated part of her liver to another complete stranger. This is a story of faith, family, compassion, and the incredible power of selfless love. We'll meet Kristie Sue coming in next. Kristie Sue, it is so great to have you on the podcast. A remarkable story, but before we get into that, why don't you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself?
I live in Minnesota with my husband, Steve, and we have a golden retriever, Charlie. I am involved in a lot of things. I have more hobbies than I have time. So I run. I typically try to have about a base of about 20 miles a week that I run. I do endurance cycling. I do Ninja Warrior obstacle training. So like if you have ever seen the show American Ninja Warrior on TV, they have like ninja gyms. And so I just took that up in August. So that's been really fun. And my most recent adventure has been taking up hiking. So there's a group called Kidney Donor Athletes, and we try to bring awareness to living organ donation. And in October of 26, I will be hiking the Grand Canyon rim to rim in one day. So I have been training for that. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Well, let me tell you what, we've got some time to share together, and I am going to do everything in my power not to upset you, because I'm thinking this girl can take me in 3 seconds flat and I'll be laying on the ground. But nonetheless, this is, it's all about transplants, and we have a lot of transplant people that are waiting, and we have many recipients. And now and again, we talk to what we call living donors. And you, Kristie Sue, you are what I would call a unicorn. And why don't you just kind of start your story from the beginning, how you got interested in organ donation, or what brought you, because every story is different. What gave you that first glimpse of, I want to do this?
Yeah. And, really before we get into that, I have to say thank you so much for having this podcast, because when I was first heading down my donor path, I was looking for donor stories on YouTube and on podcasts, and I was just like devouring that content. And, although it exists, it's kind of a niche little area, the transplant area and then the living donor area. So this is the first opportunity I've had to really tell the full length story. So I really appreciate you and using your talents to help the transplant community. So Thank you.
Yeah, once you've got into the community, you learn to love it, and it is like you said, it is a tight niche, but they are all bonded together, and it's surprising how this podcast has grown all across the country, and I'm just very blessed to be able to do it, and I'm blessed to have your story on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, and about the, I have met some of the most amazing people through this process, whether it's other donors, like recipients, donor families, and all the things. You kind of get absorbed into this community, and it's pretty amazing. But yeah, so what brought me into this is I did not know anyone that needed a kidney or, anything like that. I was just living my life, and I met someone at work, and we were chatting. And he had mentioned just in conversation that he only had one kidney. And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, if you need a kidney, like, you can have one of mine. It was just placed on my heart that I don't know where that came from, but it was like, yeah, I'd give my kidney to anybody. And the only explanation that I have for it is that God placed it on my heart to give a kidney. I think that's a big part of it. And he was like, oh, well, thank you. I've never had anybody but my mom offer that to me. And he explained that he was fine. He's completely healthy, but he had a birth defect. And so he had one of his kidneys removed because of that. It was causing some problems. So he had it removed. So he was living a completely healthy life. And so my head was starting down this path. Like, yeah, I would totally give a kidney to anybody that needed it. And here he's thinking like, wow, this lady must really be into me because she offered me an internal organ. And he must have up line because eventually we started dating. We are now married. So,
I've heard that, people who donate organs to other people have become very close, along with donor families that have become very close. And this isn't the first. It's the first time I've heard this story on this podcast, but it's not the first time I've heard that story where it's happened. So congratulations to you.
Yeah, so he did not need a kidney. He is totally fine. But it sparked that like, oh, this is a thing. Like, yeah, I would give it to anyone. And, fast forward, we end up getting married and everything else. And I had heard of someone else kind of like through family and things like that had kidney disease and they might be needing a kidney eventually. And so immediately the first thing that came to mind was like, they could have one of mine. And I did not know anything about kidney donation other than you could donate one. And as evidenced by my husband, I mean, he's living a completely healthy life just on one kidney. And I knew that donation was a thing, but I didn't know anyone that donated. I didn't know anyone that needed a kidney. So after that second kind of thought, okay, this person could need one. I'm like, I keep offering to give away a kidney. I should probably look into kind of what goes into that. So I Googled it and I came across the Mayo Clinic. So, we have the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota here. And it explained that there's this thing called non-directed donation. And another term for it is altruistic donation. And I struggle with that term a little bit because I feel like even donating to someone is altruistic. So I prefer the term non-directed. So if you didn't know someone that needed a kidney, you could just donate and they would find somebody that needed it. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm in. So I contacted the Mayo and they do a pre-screening kind of over the phone and online. And I passed that. And then I went on to, going to the Mayo Clinic for a few days and they run you through all kinds of tests and things like that. And while I was in that process, it's kind of a weird thing, right? You're going through this process for a surgery that you do not need to have. for someone you don't know. So I was pretty protective of who I told about that while I was going through the process. My, really close friends knew, and that was kind of it. I was keeping that pretty tight, close to my chest. And the other thing is as you're going through the process, like anything can happen. Like who knew if I would actually make it through being eligible, passing all the screening, they could find something weird I didn't know I had or anything like that. So, I kind of kept it close to my chest, but I did tell one of my close friends, and this is kind of another one of those like God moment things. There was a teacher that I had in high school, and I would call my childhood rich with adversity. So just to give you kind of like the elevator version of what that looked like is, my mom left when I was 10, and she had struggled with drugs and alcohol. And then when I was 13, my dad struggled with some mental health stuff and also had a past with alcoholism. And he brought us to stay with me and my sister, brought us to stay with our aunt and uncle for the summer, and then didn't come and pick us up. And then from there, I had a couple of other living situations and things like that. So by the time I was a junior in high school, filled with just piss and vinegar, it's a very angry and bitter teen. And I had a teacher that really took me under her wing, and she really planted a seed of compassion. And I think that was a real turning point in my life, was having her, especially being non-related, and really, she did not need to be invested in me, like investing in me and caring about me and kind of keeping an eye on me. And like I said, taking me under her wing. So she was one of those people that I told that I was going to be donating a kidney. And she's like, to who? And I said, well, I don't know, because I don't know anyone that needs a kidney. And she said, well, and from 7th grade, she needs a kidney. She doesn't need it right now, but she's heading down that path. She's going to need it within the next couple of years. And I was like, well, I'm kind of already committed to donating at the Mayo Clinic, but I'll kind of see what we can do here. And her friend was located in, I believe, South Dakota. And they have a program, not the Mayo Clinic. There is a program through the National Kidney Registry, and they handle things called paired donation, and they have a voucher program. So it's when you have someone that needs a kidney, donate, but they're not a match for that person. So they have this whole network where they'll kind of like do kidney swaps and things like that, like where as long as you have somebody that's willing to donate on your behalf, they will find you, the match. So that's how I was going to get matched regardless, was like I was going into this pool where the National Kidney Registry would find me a recipient. Well, as part of that, if you go in as a non-directed donor with the National Kidney Registry, they kind of try to remove any barriers that you might have that would keep you from donating. So like a lot of people that I've talked to, it comes up like, well, I have kids. What if my kid needed a kidney, or what if this, or what if a family member, and those types of things. So if you're a non-directed donor, you can list up to 5 family members. And if one of them needs a kidney, they will automatically get put onto the living donor list. And once one person has taken that voucher, then nobody else on the list can get it. But it's so rare that even comes up, that it's kind of that secure. There's another way that they have this voucher program where you can designate it for a specific person, so that when they need a kidney, they are automatically part of the, they're put into the living donor pool. So it gets them a living donor faster. Typically, the wait time for a deceased donor is much longer. So my friend, Nancy, the teacher, she had her friend in South Dakota that was going to need a kidney. So I talked to my husband about it because, he only has one kidney. And I said, hey, I have the option to either have this voucher program where we list 5 people, in which case my husband could be on that along with 4 others, or I can direct this voucher, to this other person that I don't know. And like, how do you feel about that? Like, I'd be kind of giving up your security blanket if you ever needed a kidney. And he said, yeah, like, of course you'd give it to her because she's going to need one for sure. And I said, well, what if you ever need one? And he's just like, if I need one, God's going to get me a kidney if that's what I'm supposed to have. And I will say through this process, I've definitely grown in my faith, and I've leaned on my husband's faith, because when I've had fear in this process, he's had faith, and that has been something that I've leaned on. So I go through, we give the voucher, I will call it, to my friend's friend. And she ended up needing a kidney before they thought she was going to. So I donated in February of 21, and they thought she was going to be able to wait 2 years, but she actually needed it much sooner. So she got activated October of that year. And she got activated in August of that year, and she got her kidney at the beginning of October. So it fast-tracked her to get a kidney. So not only did I help the person who I donated to that February, but then also I was able to get her on the living donor list. So kind of miracles all around. Yeah, it was really awesome.
Now, I know every state is a little different, but most states do honor the system you're talking about. So I don't, no matter what state you're in, and if you know someone who needs a kidney, usually, you can pay that forward by doing the living donor thing, even though you are not a match. And then they do the pairing where they find a match to them. I believe in almost every state they have that, but I know every state has different rules, because we're going to get into more of your story as we find out you are a double donor. And a lot of states, or at least a lot of facilities, does not allow that. So I'm excited to hear the process when we get to it, but I'm going to kick back and relax and let you continue with your story. I just wanted to get that out there, that every state does seem to be just a little different on things.
Yeah, and I didn't know that it was state specific. In this particular case, I talked to my teacher friend, and she talked to her friend, and I got her transplant hospital's information. And so I kind of, like, my people at Mayo Clinic contacted her people in South Dakota, and they arranged it that way, because I think my understanding of it, you might be right, and it might be the state-based. I thought it was like whether or not the transplant center participated with the National Kidney Registry, but I don't know.
And I think you are right, but it's just, I know a lot of the rules are different in every state. So kind of check your state laws, but maybe with the National Kidney Foundation and everything, that is kind of a thing. So I may be speaking out of turn. So I'm going to go with you.
And it's just such a miracle, because there are so many times that someone is willing to donate on someone's behalf, but they're not a match. And so this program has facilitated so many more people getting transplants because of that. And then the other thing is, often you're getting a better match. So, like, for example, say that you had, a father that was willing to donate to his daughter, right? Well, there's an age discrepancy there, right? If you enter into the pool, there's a good chance that he can get his daughter from a different, living donor. So there are advantages outside of just, like, there being, like, even if, like I said, even if they were, the father and daughter were a match, you can get her possibly a better kidney, because you could get her a younger kidney, or in the case of like antigens and all that kind of thing. So really it provides for like the best possible outcomes for people when they are able to participate in kind of this like paired donation or voucher donation, that type of thing. And like I was saying before, the National Kidney Registry really tries to remove any barriers that would keep people from donating. So, for example, like myself, because I'm a donor, the likelihood of me needing a kidney is really low. They run you through so many tests to make sure that you are healthy and everything else. But like, let's say that I got some sort of virus or something like that, and it would affect anyone's kidneys, even people with two, but I needed a new kidney. I'm automatically on the living donor list then. So they try to remove any, like I said, any barriers. The other thing that they have is they provide reimbursement for donors' travel, and they provided reimbursement for my fuel and food and hotel while we were down at Mayo Clinic. And they also have wage reimbursement for people that need it. So if you need to take time off of work, for me, it was just easier to use the time that I had accrued at work. So I did not utilize the wage reimbursement. I just used my own time, to take off. But they really do a great job of taking care of their donors. And like I said, trying to remove any barrier that someone would have. And they really want it to be kind of like a zero sum, right? So they don't want it to cost you anything other than your organ to donate, right? So they were amazing to work with. It was an amazing group to work with.
Okay. And now, like I said, in the beginning of the program, I told people that you were kind of the unicorn of organ donation because, and there are facilities that won't allow this. And man, God bless you. You went for round 2 to donate a piece of your liver because you can, a liver will regenerate. So you can just donate a piece of your liver, and you went on to do that.
I did. So when I was going through the process of donating my kidney and donated, at that time, Mayo Clinic was not doing non-directed liver donation. So you could only donate if you knew or had a connection to the person that you were donating to. And then it wasn't until I was going back for a follow-up appointment for my kidney that they had opened it up and they were going to start doing non-directed liver donation. And donating a kidney had such a profound impact on my life that I was like, yeah, I would for sure donate another kidney if I could. I would keep doing it because it's to get somebody off of dialysis, like it just, the way I've heard it explained by another donor is it's like such an asymmetrical, like kind of relationship because I gave up so little for what gave someone so much. So it just seemed like such a no-brainer to donate. Like I had like a 6-week weightlifting restriction. I couldn't lift over 10 pounds. And I was running, like I ran 3 miles 12 days post-donation. So like my recovery went really smooth and it was really, very unremarkable, I will say, recovery. Nothing weird happened. I was back at it right away. So it was so fulfilling to be able to do that for someone that I would have done another kidney, but that's not an option. So liver is. I went on, today is actually my 2nd year liverversary. So 2 years ago today, I donated 63% of my liver. Again, I did not know the person that it was going to, so it was considered non-directed. The thing about liver donation, it is a longer recovery. It's a more challenging surgery. It does grow back, so the liver does regenerate. So the 63% that they took regenerates, and it regenerates really quickly. I mean, in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
But then it takes it takes some time for it to get the density that it needs to be, but the volume is there. At least that's my understanding. The volume's there within a few weeks. And as weird as this might sound, it happens so quickly that it's almost like you can feel it happening. Like you can feel that there are changes happening in your body, which is wild. But it was it was a really profound experience to be able to do something like that to give someone their life back, essentially. Liver failure is just, it's really an ugly, ugly deal to go through a degenerating liver. So I did that 2 years ago. The recovery, like I said, was a bit longer. I think I was running again 6 weeks post donation. And then after 12 weeks, I was back up and doing everything that I used to do.
Now,
here I am.
With the liver, were you able to at least put a list together of people that you would like to pay it forward to if they ever needed a liver transplant, or is that an option with the liver?
So liver's a bit different. The National Kidney Registry kind of handles the
voucher
donation for kidneys and the vouchers, but liver donations, my understanding is that it is a smaller pool of people that need livers. The kidney list, I think, is like 100,000 people or close to it.
Oh yeah, it's a long list.
Yeah, and so the liver, I think, is a smaller pool. They were trying to do kind of a paired exchange thing. They were doing, like a trial run or whatever of a paired donation process. The thing this is my understanding of living liver donation. The thing that's a challenge with that, like kidneys, they really have the system down where they can ship them and they can preserve them in a way that it's very easy for them to put them on an airplane. In the case of the living liver donation, like me and the recipient had to be in the same hospital, and we had like the same anesthesiologist, like because they're taking mine out and they're walking it over and putting it in the recipient. So I think that with that, there are a lot of challenges that come with pairing people. And that's the word I was thinking of, pilot program. The pilot program that they were trying around the time that I was donating my liver looked a little bit like you would fly the donor to the recipient center and they would donate there. And just being a donor and having went through the process, I can see like that being a huge hurdle, because I had my team at the Mayo and, I had them through my kidney donation and I'm familiar with that. It's close to home. You spend, I was in the hospital for the liver donation for, I don't know, I think it was 6 days or maybe even a week. And then we had to stay in the Rochester area for, I want to say it was like a total of 10 days for follow-up appointments and things like that. And I think that would be an awful lot to ask of a donor, to fly them to a recipient and have them go to a different center that they're not familiar with and everything else. So I think that there's a lot more hurdles with liver than there are with kidney. So they don't have the list or the pay it forward or anything like that as far as the liver goes. So I just donated my liver and that's that.
And now what else do you expect to donate there, young lady? Because I think you pretty well filled the basket there.
I know, right? My surgeon that did my liver surgery, he's like, you are done. There's no more organs that you can donate. I am still on the bone marrow registry, although I think that I'm getting towards the top age of that, where they prefer to have younger donors for that. But I do advocate for living organ donation. So that kind of fills my heart and fills that space of wanting to continue to pay it forward. So I volunteer for LifeSource, which is our organ procurement organization for this area. And I have met some amazing people through that. I have met recipients. I have met donor families. It's just so great. So we go out and talk to people about registering to be organ donors, and then also like that living donors and living donation is a thing. So that's kind of how I fill my heart now, because I can't donate anything else.
Now,
like I said, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, because when you go out and do these talks, I know a lot of times, I do those things too. And they usually have a Q&A at the end of each segment. What are some of the questions you've received that you seem to, get over and over? That way you could just answer them right here on the podcast.
Sure. Let's see.
I know I put you on the spot there, and sorry about doing that.
Yeah, no, that's, it's interesting because, people will kind of talk to me after some of these things, or, and, a lot of what people are doing is they're telling me why they wouldn't do a non-directed donation. And I'm like, well, I'm not here to talk anybody into it. It's just to let people know that it's out there. And, it is very common for non-directed donors to kind of share the same story of just like, oh, I heard it was a thing, so I decided to do it, and boom, there we go. So I think that's part of why it's so important for us to share our stories, is because if somebody hears it and they're like, oh, that's a thing, I'll do it. Sometimes people will ask about the recovery. That comes up a lot, like on Facebook groups and different groups that I'm part of, is like, how long was it until you could be active again? People, curious about, is it going to change their lifestyle? Those types of things come up quite a bit. People are very curious about like where my donations went to, if I ever found out who I gave to, or, that type of a thing. And with that, when you donate non-directedly, you can decide either to sign some paperwork releasing your information so that the person that received your organ donation can contact you, or you can choose to stay anonymous. And my first thought was I really wanted to stay anonymous. That was kind of, I didn't need to be contacted. I did my donation and that's it. But then, often throughout this process, I would put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm like, man, if someone did that for me, there would be a hole in my heart if I could not thank them for it. So I'm like, okay, I'll sign off on the waivers so that I could be contacted. So although I wouldn't say that I have a relationship with either one of my recipients, I did find out a little bit about their stories, which was interesting. The person that got my kidney, he's a gentleman that lives in Illinois, and he was on dialysis from the age 24 to 29, and then got my, donation, and he's off dialysis, and seems like things are going really well. So I got a very short little note from him thanking me for the donation. And then the woman that got my liver, I know that she lives in Minnesota. I know that she's older than I am. And again, she kind of contacted me through social media and thanked me for my donation, but I don't know anything about her, why she needed it or anything like that, which, I mean, to me, it's pretty irrelevant. If medical professionals deemed that you needed a liver, that's good enough for me.
Here's the $1 million question. And answer it any way you want. But I think I know the answer.
Okay.
But but I may not know the answer. If you had both to do all over again, would you do it again?
Oh yeah, I would do it in a second. They'll only let you donate, even though it grows back, they'll only let you donate part of your liver once. And I'm like, well, it grows back, but I guess that they take some vasculature that doesn't grow back the same way or something like that. So I would do it again in a second. And that's even with, like, not to sugarcoat anything, because the liver donation, that was a long recovery. And I actually ended up with, I had to go back into the hospital because I ended up with C. diff. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah. Oh, I went through a bout with myself, so I know exactly what that is.
It's awful. And that was not because I donated my liver. So it's not a complication that's specific to a liver donation. It's just, you had a surgery, I was on like antibiotics that can throw off your gut health and things like that. So I ended up with that. And it's like, my understanding of it is it's like a infection or something like that in your intestine or bowels or something like that. Very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And so I had to go back down to Mayo for an overnight. And even with that being said, I would still do it all over again. Because like I said, the amount that donation changed my life, I mean, it's arguable that it changed me more than it changed my recipients. It's strengthened my marriage. It's strengthened my faith. And let me just say, caregivers, shout out to all the caregivers, because first of all, I am type A and I am very independent, and being in a situation where I was vulnerable and I had to like lean on my husband, and he was absolutely amazing. He does not get enough credit. This was definitely in both cases like a team effort. He was amazing. And so like I said, I feel like it strengthened our marriage because it allowed me to be vulnerable, and I had to lean on him, and he did a great job taking care of me, and he's very supportive. And it just fills you up to know that you did something really great for someone. I have a hard time with you saved someone's life. That's kind of in God's hands. And as part of the process in donating, they ask you all kinds of questions. They want to make sure that no matter how either donation goes, that you can kind of handle it emotionally. So they present you with different scenarios, like what if the person that receives your donation doesn't do well, or something happens and they reject your organ, or anything like that. And my thought on it the whole time was, I don't have any control over how the organ does, but what I do have control over is saying that I'm going to do this and following through with it. And there's something that the recipient is going to get out of from the time that they receive that phone call that they're getting an organ from a non-directed donor until the time that they have their surgery. What they have in that time is hope. And if that's all they get out of the whole process is that time of hope, that's worth it to me. And I mean, it's a bonus that both of them received the organs and they're both doing well. But, to really cut it down and pare it down when you're going through the process and they're kind of like talking to you about all this like psychological possibilities of like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What if it doesn't do well? And that, to really break it down in terms of like, okay, well, this is what I have control over. That's kind of how I looked at it. So long answer to your question, but I would do it again.
It's interesting though to hear your take on it, because that's amazing when you say you're giving them hope. Now, let me ask you this one time, and again, I think I know your answer, but I'm going to ask you, because I know if you're going to be a living donor and they tell you when you got all those tests and when you got all that information, that even up till the minute they're ready to stick the anesthesia in you, you can say, stop. Was there anywhere along the way that maybe you thought just for a second even, do I really want to do this?
No. And that's why I say this was definitely like an appointment from God, because I am a very risk adverse person. And so there was never a point where I thought, I am not going to go through with this. Like, it was absolutely 100%. I was going to do it. Now, was I nervous? Yeah, absolutely. There were times that I was scared, but I knew that I was going to follow through with it. And I think part of that too is, again, like I said earlier, kind of like putting myself in someone else's shoes. I kept thinking about whoever was going to get this, either one of my organs, they're counting on me. Like, I cannot imagine the devastation that would happen to someone if, they're promised this organ and it doesn't happen. Like, when people talk about when they're getting like deceased organ donations and they have dry runs and things like that, I cannot imagine going through with that. Like, having to live through the devastation that would be you're ready to go in for your operation and then boom, it was a dry run and it, either the organ wasn't good enough or those types of things. So I knew for sure if I said I was going to do this, I was going to follow through with it. So that definitely did not play a part in my mind, although the whole way through the process, from all of the testing and everything, they tell you in almost every appointment, like, you understand that you don't have to do this. Here are the complications. Like, here are the possible risks. Like they lay it out for you in just about every appointment. So, they'll even go as far as to say like that there is, a risk of death, right? Anytime there's a surgery, anytime there is that risk, and they make it very clear to you that that's a possibility. And I mean, it's not a big possibility, but they lay it out for you. They're very, very clear, and they very much put the donor first. So even if you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting cold feet, I don't want to do this, they won't tell the recipient or who you're testing for in the case that you're testing directly for someone. They'll just say that it was incompatible. So they really protect the donor. They look out for you. I had to go through psychological evaluations. I met with a social worker. My husband got interviewed. I mean, they really do their due diligence to make sure that the donor is put first.
Now, I wonder about this too, because, you said you give someone that hope, but I wonder if you are like an anonymous donor, like you were, if they, just like a deceased donor, they won't tell them till like they come in maybe the day before, the night before, and say, oh, we think we found a match for you. Your surgery is scheduled for tomorrow, instead of like saying, because I, like you said, I know that people can even, because I have a gentleman who got a kidney and it was one of his friends, and his friend never once told him that I'm being tested to be your donor, because he didn't want to disappoint him, obviously, if it didn't work. So he really didn't find out till, like when the surgery was scheduled, he found out that day, and he found out who the donor was going to be. But obviously he knew also there was a chance that the guy could back out if he wanted to, but he didn't even find out that the guy was ready to donate until they came up with a transplant date for the surgery.
Yeah, I am not sure how that works, but it would be amazing being the person that gets to make that phone call and say, hey, we have an organ for you. That would be, if I could have a job for a day, that would be the one that I would have, is calling someone to say, look, we have an organ for you. That would be pretty amazing.
Well, I know how excited I was the day they told me they had a heart coming for me the next day. And also, they told me they had a kidney coming, because I had two different surgeries, one in 2003, one in 2015. And I remember those calls. But I do remember my wife on the other end, when I told her, because she was at home, she was coming to get me. Actually, the next day, they were going to let me out of the hospital. And I called her and said, hey, they have a heart for me. Tomorrow's the day. And she didn't take that news very well. It pretty well freaked her out. But I was like all giddy and like, yeah, let's go, baby. And she was like, oh my God. And, it really put the stress on her again. So again, I'm going to stress what you said. Those caregivers go through so much, and they are the miracles in life also, just as you, a double miracle maker. So appreciate that.
And can we just touch on that, the deceased donor piece a little bit? Because I've heard through, some of your other podcasts and listening that sometimes when people get an organ, from a deceased donor, and other recipients that I've talked to, that like holding two things at once, of being excited to get their donation, but then also holding that like someone, lost their life and that's why you're getting it. And to those people that are kind of holding both of those things at the same time, I would just really encourage them to like speak to donor families, because I have talked to, donor families through the work that I've done with LifeSource. And it is amazing what it gives them to know that they were able to do something for someone else, like even in their grief. It's very powerful for donor families to to know that. So if that gives any hope to anybody that has received a deceased, organ donation, like I said, I just encourage you to reach out. Maybe not to, you might not ever hear from your donor family, but to reach out to other donor families and hear what their story is and just what it has given them to have, had their loved one choose donation.
And the word I hear so much from the donor families is my loved one's legacy continues in this person. Their heart is beating, or their lungs are breathing, or their kidneys are working. That is their loved one's legacy, that they have given life to others. And I hear that word more than any other word when I talk to donor families, that the legacy lives on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, is there anything that we may have missed, Kristie Sue, that you'd like to bring up before we let you go? And I really do appreciate this interview because it shows light on not only living donors, but, you're, like I said, you're the unicorn. You've done it twice now. And it's a great thing that you did. So any last words you have for us?
I would just like to say, if anybody is interested in contacting me, if they're interested in donation or they want to see what I'm up to, I do have an Instagram account, and it's 2X Living Donor. And either reach out to me on there, contact me through that, or even if you just wanted to give me a follow on there. I will be training for the rim to rim hike, so that's what I'm up to. And then also I have some fun ninja videos on there, so that usually gives people a smile. We do some crazy stuff at Ninja Gym. So if anybody's interested, I have talked to people that have considered donation. I have talked with people that have donated a kidney and are interested in donating part of their liver and things like that. So I can get more in depth of like what the testing looks like or all that type of thing if anybody's interested in contacting me about that.
Thank you so much, Kristie Sue, for sharing this incredible story with our audience. And be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and also don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, isn't just a medical story. It's a story of my life, from the first surgery at 22 months old to an experimental surgery in 1968, all the way through today. My comedy career, long radio career, it's a little bit of everything. It's one of those books that'll make you laugh and maybe even cry. And of course, definitely believe in second chances. Get yours now, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, available on Amazon. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. And we want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.